It was Tuesday, close to midnight. Time means less in the prep room. Every step is sacred when you're reworking with the deceased. I had just begun stitching Richard Collins, a middle-aged man who died in an auto accident on Route 9. The morgue was sterile and cool, humming with the air vent above surgical lights. After 3 days without rest, your mind plays tricks during late-night funeral home work. So I focused on the Y incision, moving methodically, but the feeling grew heavy, pressing down across my shoulders. The observation window was locked and empty, but I felt it. That strange awareness when someone watches you. I was alone. I waved my hand above his face. His pupils didn't move, of course. He was dead nearly 48 hours. I dismissed it. 20 minutes later, while rinsing tools, I glanced over. The eyes were open again. That's when I noticed it. His eyes were open. This happens sometimes to morticians. Eyelids don't always stay shut after embalming. But this was different. I was certain I had shut them properly with eye caps, secured the lids correctly, as the pupils looked wrong, dilated, but not in the usual post-mortem way. They looked alert, staring straight at the ceiling. The pupils seemed sharp, focused, pointed slightly left, toward me. Some think the dead are silent, but I've been doing this mortuary work long enough to know. Sometimes they watch. I covered the eyes again with fresh caps, secured tight with adhesive. This time I didn't move. I watched from across the room. I finished the sutures and moved him to refrigeration. When I left that night, I didn't look at the observation window. I know what I felt. I've worked in this funeral home for 26 years. You get used to the silence, the soft hum of freezers, the gentle sigh of refrigeration systems. Some find it eerie. I've always found it peaceful. It was 11:30 p.m. on Wednesday. I'd just finished polishing the prep table and began mopping the floor. Routine keeps the mind straight in this mortician work. Then I heard it. Soft scraping sounds like socks dragging across hospital floors, shuffling from the cold storage. I stopped mopping, stood perfectly still. The sound didn't come again immediately. Maybe the compressor stuttered, maybe pressure shifted. Yet, you hear strange things in older funeral homes when they're quiet. I walked down the hall toward storage, my boots echoing too loud. I unlocked the cold room. The heavy door wheezed open. Storage drawers lined the walls in perfect symmetry. Stainless steel, clean, polished. I'd checked them all before mopping. Each one shut, bolted. Each one still was. Yet there it was again. Shuff, shuff. A dragging sound from my left. I checked the drawers top to bottom. All sealed, all tagged. No signs of movement, no frost shift. The room was cold and correct. Then a single thud behind me. I turned slowly. One drawer, B7, second from bottom, had no tag. That was odd. I always tagged them. I checked the lock, sealed deadbolt firm. No disturbance, no sound. But I felt pressure in the air like before a thunderstorm. I backed up. The shuffling stopped, but the stillness wasn't normal quiet. It was heavy silence, like something waiting for me to leave. So I did. In the morning, I checked tag logs. Drawer B7 was logged as empty. Impossible. We never leave drawers untagged, and empty drawers aren't sealed. Security footage showed the door never opened after I'd entered. We reopened B7 during inspection. It's empty, still sealed, still cold. No tampering. Now when I'm mopping after hours, I hear it again. A single shuffle near drawer B7. I've worked here long enough to know when something's out of place. I don't believe in theatrics, but I listen. I never leave B7 untended. They brought Eleanor Jameson in on Thursday morning. Mid-60s, no family, found by a neighbor after 3 days. No trauma, no foul play, just the slow passing that happens when people grow old alone. She'd gone peacefully, head tilted toward the window, eyes closed. Eleanor was small, hands folded over her chest, hair pinned with care. She reminded me of church women from my childhood. There was even a glass of water next to her recliner. Vague, shadowed, standing side by side. They weren't doing anything, just standing, watching her. I'd been doing mortician work long enough to know what to expect. I began standard prep just after 9 p.m. I like working night shifts, fewer distractions, just me and the quiet hum of the embalming pump. The room was still. I was focused, in the rhythm of funeral home work. Then I noticed movement in my peripheral vision. Not fast, not sharp, but out of place. I looked up. 3 figures stood along the wall at the far end of the prep room, behind the tray carts and stainless shelving. But the door was shut, locked. I always lock it during solo mortuary work. Whatever waited for her in that dark room was waiting with familiarity. Sometimes that's the best we can hope for. You couldn't see faces or clothes, just outlines, dark, motionless. But I felt their weight in the room. At first I thought someone had entered, an assistant, maybe the director doing nightly rounds. The posture was like family at a visitation, like siblings around a casket. Heads slightly bowed. A presence, not a performance. They weren't distinct like people. I didn't move, didn't stop the pump. I stood with my hand on the clamp, trying to breathe. That moment I understood without panic that they weren't there for me. They were looking at her, not mourning, not weeping. After maybe 30 seconds, one seemed to lean forward. I didn't hear anything, but there was stillness in the air, like a final word had been spoken. Then they were gone. No dramatic exit, just no longer there. I finished the embalming, dressed her in a blue dress with white pearls. No family-requested viewing, but I placed a rose beside her hand. I still don't know who they were. Family, friends, spirits. But Eleanor didn't leave this world alone. Have you worked this mortuary job for 27 years, long enough to know the difference between a creaky pipe and something unexplainable? We work with facts in this profession. Blood type, time of death, precise incision angles. So when I tell you what happened, understand I'm not asking you to believe anything supernatural. I'm only sharing what I experienced. This doesn't usually stick with me, but he was the last case on Thursday, and I was alone in the funeral home. Samuel Harper died in a car crash outside town. Early evening, overcast, rain streaking down windows. Paramedics said he died on impact. Seatbelt snapped, windshield spiderwebbed. Early 40s, lean, minimal facial damage. The transport staff made comments while unloading. That's the guy who used to whistle. It's always the same tune. Annoying, actually. Nothing playing.
Right.
He was on the table, wound cleaned, sutured where needed. As I worked, I played classical music on the small speaker, something soft for these solitary mortician hours. The building was silent otherwise. There's no movement, no motion detectors tripped, just me and him. I think I heard someone whistle in a locked mortuary, so I waited. Keys, wallet, chewing gum, and a receipt from a diner. Scrawled at the bottom, "You and that damn tune? I'll be humming it all night again." Then I heard it from the hallway. A short, clear whistle. 4 notes. 2 high, 1 low. Back up. Not random. A little shaky, but deliberate. But for 3 evenings, at roughly the same time between midnight and 1 a.m., the whistle returned. Same pattern, same notes, always in the hallway. Human. After we cremated Samuel the following week, the sound stopped. I froze, scalpel midair. The hallway was empty. The sound hadn't come from the speaker. I'd unplugged it when the battery died. I checked my phone. I walked to the doorway. Still nothing. My heart was in my throat. I waited, listening. The tune repeated. 4 notes. Same pitch, same rhythm. Farther down the hallway now, toward refrigeration. I've dealt with grieving families, decomposing bodies, even break-ins. The building smelled of bleach and steel, but the air felt heavier, like something occupying space I couldn't see. But I'd never experienced anything like this during my funeral home career. I walked the hall slowly, no footsteps but mine. I checked refrigeration, empty except for bodies, all zipped, undisturbed, no signs of entry or exit. Back in the prep room, I sat down. What would I say? Something pushed me to check Samuel's personal effects. Not protocol, but instinct. I left around 1:30 a.m. Didn't hear the whistle again that night. I never saw anything. Never found a source. They tell you when you start mortuary work that the dead are silent. For the most part, that's true. But silence has textures. And sometimes when you've spent too long among the deceased, You notice things that move. Small chapel out front, prep room in back where I did most of my funeral homework. The kind you position above the table for facial reconstruction or delicate restoration. Heavy, solid metal, not plastic like newer ones. You had to push hard to get it to move. I started at Marrow Creek Mortuary in winter 1998. Older building, red brick, white trim. The movement slowed after a minute. I chalked it up to settling metal. Maybe I'd bumped it, not wildly, just gently, like someone nudged it and let go. I'd reconstructed his jaw, patted facial tissue, about to remove the surgical lamp, when I realized it was moving on its own. Always when the room was quietest. Embalming pump off, no ventilation hum. There was a surgical lamp in that room. Overhead on a long, retractable arm. I even checked with the candle for current. Nothing. The light never moved with natural deaths. Not once. Only with accident victims, suicides, homicides, cases where death came hard or fast, especially with head or chest trauma. But every few nights around 3 a.m., it would start to sway. The light swayed. Before I made my first incision, I noticed it the first week. I'd finished cleaning up after a long prep, minus 43-year-old man hit by a truck. Multiple fractures. Back and forth, back and forth. No windows open, no HVAC, just me and the dead man. At precisely 3:03 a.m., it began to swing. Soft creak in the hinge, same pace, same reach. But it happened again the next night. I hadn't touched the lamp. It was parked all the way left, not extended. I let it finish, and I always say one thing softly before shutting down. I hear you. You learn to live with these unexplainable funeral home experiences. Same gentle arc, 4 to 6 inches either direction. Stayed late, but left the table empty. No deceased, no prep, just the lamp above the steel tray. I stood back, arms crossed, staring. I started marking the nights. March 14th, 16th, 17th. Always alone, always after 3 a.m. Never a breeze, never a draft. One night I tested it. It didn't move at first. I watched 45 minutes, back aching, feet hurt, about to call it wasted effort when it twitched. Just a shiver, then a sway. I swear on every mortician license I've held, I hadn't touched it. No contact, no airflow. From that night, I tracked what I was working on when it moved. April 3rd, 14-year-old boy fell from scaffolding, skull fracture. April 22nd, elderly woman, murder-suicide, blunt force trauma, same thing. I tried swapping bulbs, changing joint tension, had a technician examine it. Perfectly normal, he said. There's no reason it should move on its own. I asked him to stay late and watch. It didn't move that night. It never did when someone else was there. After a few years, you stop needing explanations. I still work there. 26 years and counting. I've gotten used to it, but I don't stand under that light when it starts swinging. Then I turn off the lights and go home.